I'm going to stick to that speed limit, but just the way this car gets up to that speed is pretty phenomenal. So if we just start driving now, so right now we're at 25, about 30 mile per hour, waiting until we're on the straight, and now we put our foot down and you can just hear. Hey guys, Max from Max Talks Cars here, and in today's video I thought we would go on a drive where I can explain to you some of the things that I really like about my Audi A1 and some of the things that I wish that Audi may have thought of doing or improving on a car like this. Now, this is the Audi A1 S-Line competition, so it has 197 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds, and it's a really premium looking and feeling car. But after having the car for 2 years, there are some things that I just wish they could have maybe done on this model that they didn't have to on some of the other models, such as the S-Line and the Sport and even the Technic. So the first thing is, before this car, and like I said, I've had this car for coming up to 2 years in March, but before this car I had the Audi TT. It was the black edition, the 45, and it was a lovely car, 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, but I wanted to give it back because it was just too impractical. It ate fuel. I think I ended up getting 18 to 20 mile per gallon on that car, when it was estimated to do about 31 to 34. But one thing that it really had on it that I liked was the steering wheel button, and the Audi A1 has that also, but the Audi TT had the ability to actually change your drive select mode on that button. So with a car like this that again has 200 brake horsepower, you want to drive it well, you want to drive it fast when you can, and so I'd like to be able to have that steering wheel button again where I can just tap it and it changes the drive select mode to, let's say, dynamic or to individual mode. But unfortunately on this car, the only way I can do that is if I have to fumble around over here and tap this button all the way down here, which lets me know what drive select mode it is. It's not a bad thing, it's not a problem, but you do sometimes have to take your eye off the road in order to get to that button. Now, I do have a steering wheel button. It's right here, if you can see where my thumb's pointing, but there's really only two functions it can do, and the one that I've got it set to do is to switch between my media audio and my radio, which sounds good, but it's not very often I really need to do that. It was just the best out of the two options. If I have a look at what the other option was for this, so the other option was to announce your traffic announcements. So if you want to have this special button on the steering wheel, the two things you can do is have it announce traffic announcements and switch between radio and media. And I just wish they had included that drive select option here as well, because I think that would be what was selected by a lot of other drivers who have this car, I would say. And I'm moving on to the point that I like about the Audi A1, and that is actually the drive select modes. So in this car you get 4 modes. You get the efficiency, you get individual, which is what I'm in right now, you have auto mode, and then you have dynamic. And the reason why I like having the car in individual is because I am able to customize all of these settings that I really want to. So I can customize the sound of the engine noise to make it sound more sporty, but I can have the steering wheel feel a bit lighter, like I'm just having an easy drive. So that's kind of what I do. I like the car to sound more pronounced, I like the suspension to be a little bit more dynamic, but I like the driving style with the steering wheel to be a little bit lighter. So it's really easy to customize that. But of course you don't get the same feeling in the individual mode that you would in full dynamic mode. And when we get onto a piece of road where I can go onto the national speed limit, I'll show you just how quickly this car picks up. But for those of you thinking to yourself, well, should I buy the Audi A1? Well, I've done a couple of videos on the exterior and interior features in a lot more detail. I've also done a full nighttime point of view test drive, which you're more than welcome to have a look at on my other videos. But just in terms of numbers, let's say, the thing that dealers often tell you is that this car will do X mile per gallon, and they haven't really tested it themselves, and they haven't kind of had real world examples of that. They just go off the numbers. And so I've had this car, like I said, almost 2 years. Since I've had it, if I just go down to my long-term memory, because I brought this car slightly used, and I'll talk about why you should maybe look to buy cars like I did, slightly used. But I've done about 15,084 miles on my ownership of the car, which is not too bad over the course of, almost 2 years. But what we can see is if I just have a look at the long-term memory and the mile per gallon, which is just in the middle of my screen, so sorry if you all can't see it, but it's telling me that over the course of just under 2 years, I averaged out 34.9 mile per gallon, and this is driving, on fast roads. This is driving in dynamic mode when the petrol crisis happened. This was driving in efficiency mode often. So it's taken all of that into consideration, and it spurts out a number of 34.9 mile per gallon. Now, if you're looking at saving money per month, you might want to look into other models. I mean, this is the top spec in terms of the engine size, so it's got the same engine as the Volkswagen Polo GTI, so it kind of matches that. Of course, Audi and VW are part of the same group. If you want to have better fuel economy, you might want to look to go for the S-Line models, or the S-Line Contrast Edition, or just a Sport or a Technic. I mean, you've got 110 PS, you've got 150 PS. This is, like I said, 200 PS. But in terms of power, I mean, you're going to get better fuel economy if you go for one of the smaller engines. If I'm averaging 35 mile per gallon, who knows, maybe you might be able to get in excess of 40 mile per gallon. But what we'll do now is I'm going to switch the car into the dynamic mode, because we're coming up to a fast road where we are national speed limit of 70 mile per hour. Of course, I'm not going to speed. I'm going to stick to that speed limit, but just the way this car gets up to that speed is pretty phenomenal. So if we just start driving now, so right now we're at 25, about 30 mile per hour, waiting until we're on the straight, and now we'll put our foot down, and you can just hear, and that is 70 miles per hour. So when you put this car into the dynamic setting, you can just hear the engine noise completely change. What it doesn't change up gears as much. And if I go to my fuel consumption right now, I'm averaging 18 miles per gallon, which isn't great, but of course we've only gone on a short drive. But if I was to put this into, let's accelerate again. If I was to put this into individual mode or auto mode, I'd be in 6th gear right now, because this is a 6-speed auto. But right now the car is putting me in 5th gear, because it knows that if I want the power to be there, it will be there straight away. So again, I'm at 60 mile per hour right now. I'm in 5th gear. If I put my foot down, change it down to 3rd gear, and gives me the power that I need, which is just wonderful, to be honest with you. So I'm going to change into another lane. We're just going to cruise for a little bit. But yeah, so now I'm on 18.9. Of course, the fuel economy will go up to a certain extent, even in dynamic mode, because of the amount of miles that I'm doing. But yeah, I really like putting it in dynamic mode when you want to. What's also great is you've got it on this gear stick. So right now I'm in Sport and 5th gear. But what I can do is I can actually pull this gear knob, and it takes me into just the normal mode. So now it puts me onto 6th gear. So I'm in the dynamic settings, but I'm not actually have the engine mode in dynamic, if that makes sense. So the engine mode's in kind of a more normal mode. I can cruise along, but if I need the power, again, I can switch it into sport, and I can put my foot down. It just goes. It absolutely goes, and I absolutely love it. But yes, that's one of the things I really like about the car, the drive select modes, and also the way it picks up. But like I said, if you're looking for a car that has better fuel economy, still look at the Audi A1, of course, but just maybe look for the S-Line models and the ones that still look really sporty, which look like my car from the outside. And again, put a video about that up, but have a better fuel economy, if that's what's most important to you. For me, having the power at my foot was the most important, while still getting a decent fuel economy. I mean, anything's better than what the Audi TT did, of 18 to 22 and about 30 on the motorway. I will say on the motorway with this car, if I had drive mode, I am able to average, you know, on long trips. So when I went to places like Liverpool, I was able to average, you know, almost 50 mile per gallon. So I think it was 49. I think I did hit over 50 mile per gallon, like 52 one time. But yeah, it's normally around the 49 mark on long trips. And on just motorway, if I was to go to junction on the motorway, I'd say I would average about 42, 43. So it's still good when you want it to be good in the right modes, but when you want to put your foot down, it's just fantastic as well. Visibility, also really good in this car. I like the small hatchbacks because they always offer good visibility. You know, I've never had a problem with blind spots. I've never had a problem with, you know, not being able to see people in my mirror. I've had some crazy drivers come up to me and come up to the back of me and try to race me, which I've never done. But I've never had to worry about, oh, I didn't see a driver there, which is really nice, especially in a car like this. And that's the other thing, you know, this car does have the same engine as that of the VW Polo, but it just feels a lot more premium, I guess. And with cars being so affordable at the moment, I mean, you can get a base model of this Audi A1 on leasing, and I'll share that with you on the screen right now. But you can get a base model of this car in the Technic spec, which isn't the best spec, but it is an Audi A1 for, I believe, £210 a month, and I think they're in stock at the moment. I'll have to check when I get back home. But yeah, £210 a month for a brand new Audi A1 Technic, and you know, you get a really nice steering wheel. I mean, you obviously don't get the S-Line steering wheel, which is what this is, but they're affordable cars if you're comparing them against the Polos with the amount of deals that go on with these cars. You know, if a dealer has some in stock, or if a lease company has some in stock, they want to shift them, and so they'll put good deals on them. And that's another part of this channel. When good deals come out on cars like this, I'll let you all know about it. You know, we'll do a rundown of some great lease deals, some great PCP deals, and we'll talk about the difference between the two as well. So what's another thing that I kind of, you know, maybe don't like about the car? Well, if you want, I guess it's this view button here. So it's pointless. It doesn't make any sense unless you have the tech pack. And if, for those of you who don't know what the tech pack is, it essentially allows you to make the speedometers smaller and bigger, and allows the sat nav to come onto your screen, which is part of that technology pack. But if you don't have that, if I was to press the view button right now, all it does is it gets rid of all of my information. It gets rid of all the information in the middle part of my screen. And if I press view again, it comes back at me. What's the point? I don't understand why Audi have done that, or why they haven't changed this button to something else on cars that don't have the technology pack. You know, it'd be nice to be able to retrofit this view button so that you don't just have to click it and it just ends up with nothing in the middle of the screen. I think you can see that here. Yeah, you can see that when I click the view button, it just goes completely blank. There's nothing I can see. So it's not a view button, it's more like an unview button. But I guess that's just a design feature that Audi need to maybe look into when they release maybe the next batch of these cars. But it drives beautifully, and you know, my girlfriend, when I had the TT, was always, you know, didn't enjoy it as much because it was a two-seater, low-down sports car with good suspension, but it's a sports car, it's not going to be great, whereas this just glides. It just glides on the motorway. It's so easy to drive, the steering's so light, the turning circle's great, the power's there when you need it, and as you can see, when I'm braking, it's also got kind of regenerative braking in a sense. So what I mean by that is that it kind of charges up the fuel consumption a bit more, so it adds to the fuel consumption. So we've been driving this in a couple of modes. I'm going to put it back into the auto mode now, so just automatic normal settings, and we're going to see after all that driving what kind of MPG we get by the time we get back to the location we started in, which is about 5 minutes from here. So I guess let's talk about the price of this car next. I bought this car when it was 6 months old, so it had one previous owner, and then I bought it after that, and I got a bit of a steal, I will say. I mean, I know there's a bit of a new car shortage at the moment, so of course cars have gone up like crazy, but I got a pretty good deal on this. I paid just under £20,000. I obviously did it on finance, but I got it for just under £20,000. I think it was 19,995, and new, these are well over 20,000. I mean, you're looking at potentially 24, 25 grand for a new one. So just because someone had driven it for 6 months, I was able to knock, you know, a good 5 grand off the list price. And now that the new car shortage has happened, this car is actually in about 5 grand of profit. So if I was to sell this car today, I would walk out my finance agreement with £5,000 kind of cash in hand, which is always quite nice, to be honest with you. You know, you never really expect something like that to happen. I knew this car was going to hold its value quite well because they are desirable hatchbacks and they're ones that will never really lose their value. This is also in the white. Colour is important to some extent when buying cars. Even cars like this, I know supercars it's more important, but with these cars they're still important. Like, you don't want to go for a red car or a yellow car too much because the dealers find it hard to sell those. There's less people who would want a red or yellow car. So the fact that I was able to get this car in white for such a good price, I was really, really happy with. So yeah, I mean, in terms of monthly prices and monthly payments, we'll do a video on that a bit later. But when it comes to PCP, you've got to put down a initial deposit, and then you just pay a monthly fee per month, you know, and at the end of the agreement you can choose to give the car back, or you can choose to maybe roll whatever equity you have, if you have any, into a new agreement, so a new car. I tend to get out of my PCP agreements earlier than that if I can. In a 48-month agreement, I normally try and get out around the kind of 36-month side of things, just because what I found for my cars, and this might not be the same for your cars, but for my cars, and I had a VW Polo, I had the Polo R-Line, I lost money on the TT unfortunately, but I'm back up on this A1. But what I found is that at the 36-month point, the kind of finance settlement leveled out with what the car was worth, so I just walked away without my initial deposit, but I was able to kind of roll that car into a new car without having to put too much extra back in. But now with this new car shortage and with the crazy price that new and used cars are at the moment, I'm actually leaning more towards the leasing model, which is more towards kind of renting a car and not having any equity in it, and not having to worry about the depreciation or the negative equity, which is quite appealing to me at the moment until the market kind of levels itself out again and we can kind of see what the car value is reduced to. Because what I guess I wouldn't want to do is drive a car, you know, or buy a new car which was, or a used car which was over list price, drive it, and then suddenly used car prices go back to normal when manufacturers can start producing new cars a lot more. So I think the next route for me will probably be down the leasing route, and I'll explain more about the differences between leasing and PCP in the next video. But I have done, like I said, more in-depth reviews on the Audi A1 in terms of its exterior and its interior features that I really like. So do go ahead and check that out, and check out my night point of view test drive. Now this has been about 15-16 minutes or so, and I can tell you that over the course of this journey, driving it, you know, in dynamic mode, in normal mode, I've averaged 31.4 mile per gallon, which really isn't too bad on a short drive. You know, imagine if that was just a 20-minute journey on the motorway, it'd be a lot higher than that. It would probably be about 37 to 40 to 42, 43. So really happy with that. Anyway, I've got lots more cars to review. I've got, you know, lots more things to say about a lot more cars. I'm looking to review the Cupra Formentor next, for those of you who are maybe looking for a branded car that isn't a Audi, Mercedes, BMW. The Cupra Formentor has its pros, but it also definitely has its cons, so I'll be talking about that in the next video. But if you've enjoyed today's video and you've enjoyed some of the information I provided, please do go ahead and give this video a like, and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more, because I'll be doing a lot more reviews like this. So thanks ever so much guys, and see you in the next video.